I didn't put it. I hit reset and I didn't hit start. Amazing. True. Now it is. Also, the microphone is slow. No, probably it's me not, not speaking with enough intensity, like always. Unsurprising. No, it was 4% lower. Amazing. Amazing. I I didn't even hear it like being used. I was like, wow, this expression. I will steal this expression and I will now expropriate that to me, to myself. And that's what happened, nothing else. And now into the wide array of expressions that somebody might once listen. There we have amazing also placed as a possibility. Amazing. You know, I, I, I. Oi. No, no, no. Finally, comma, philosophy. So true. Let me close this thing, thank you. And something else. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, I am good. I'm good. I'm great. I'm amazing. No, yeah, I should actually test audio. Supposedly, is it really necessary? What's there to test? Oh wow, it works. Amazing. It's. I don't really know. I think, nothing. Also, what? Why is the first thing that I see when I open a browser is new dark era incoming? What? 2 minutes of reading. Next 5 years. What? Thanks to AI? Okay, I see. Okay, anyway, enough. The internet induced psychosis is something like that, basically. What? Where did that come from even? Yeah. You know what? We will have an arcades coming in the next 5 years. We are in 2026 and you will live one of the most dangerous times of your life in the next 5. In the next 5, or is it taking this 5 into consideration? Like, yeah, from here onwards, that would make more sense, no? Who knows? Who actually knows? Point being, doesn't matter. It does not matter. The world is actually not going to end, and no, it's also not getting closer to a darker age. Yeah. Why do we have such a need for that kind of information? How popular is something like that that it instantaneously gets recommended? Because, oh, no. You have the argument, okay. It's understandable enough, no? You have the whole idea of, wow, yeah, this thing happens. This thing, you are seeing this thing because it is dedicated to you. Your algorithm is oriented towards that. No, you know that thing that most, I don't know if most, some people use to try and get their particular browser only dedicated to streaming that has almost nothing open. Okay. In that sense, this random nuke came from there. From a completely random area of yeah, you know what? This is the end. What? What are you talking about? What? Doesn't matter. It absolutely does not matter. It's we are fine, I guess. Supposedly. It's more of a yeah, it doesn't affect me, but I guess if it actually popularizes itself, I don't think so, right? The issue was it was one of those literally in the moment posts like yeah, this was just right now announced. The world is ending tomorrow. All here, all the people present here. Listen, we are about to suffer the end of our times of the world as we knew it, basically, yeah. And therefore, that means that everyone should be agitated in some way or another, and that's not so much the case. But who knows? Who actually knows? Also, surprisingly enough, I shall actually say this here more officially, I guess. I have to think about it. I never realized that, like, I never openly thought about it, but I finally got a more decent sleeping schedule compared to before. I am not going to sleep at like 5 a.m. anymore, so that's good. But the issue is, on the other hand, I am not going to sleep at 5 a.m., so it's kinda hard to actually be here at later times, even if the other issues still exist. Like, yeah, we are we are still kind of condemned to have some problems, but we have learned to live with them, to accept them as whatever they are, and yeah, it's all good. At some point, things will work themselves out. As I don't know. Probably the real message is good morning. Um, what? I know. I thought it wasn't working the microphone. No. It was unsurprisingly, it was me having an instant, a brief second of silence, which nobody has no audio being captured. But no. Anyway, I was saying most important message, I guess. Probably we're going to go back to our more normal schedule soon enough of like 1 hour in or so. Also, what's up with the subtitles? Why are they outside of the boundary? Let me order. Perhaps that's where they belong. Perhaps. Seems to be the case anyway. I was saying that, yeah, surprisingly enough, here we are, and yeah, we're going to have some changes in the near future. I don't even know when. Anyway, point being, I guess it's not so much of a realization of something in particular. There has been so much going on lately. It's just one amongst many things to try to actually talk about in specific. The issue is it's always, there are always so many things to discuss, and there are always so many ideas that it's complicated to actually have enough willfulness to say, ah, yeah, only this one is what we're going to focus on. It's, in a way, yeah, the most basic modus operandi of somebody who might be anxious or something like that, and it's understandable enough. In a way, even negative, but hard to unlearn point. Actual point is, yeah. And instead of that whole set of things, one of those topics that I finally realized we have to talk about this. I have been trying to do some work about that, and I think, I wouldn't say I get it entirely, but yeah, I have been thinking about it personally, so I would prefer to express what little I got to think about that same notion outside outside of my own self, so to speak. And yeah, I was actually not just recently, like, oh yeah, this past week or so. It has been, in reality, I would go as far as to say something that has been there perhaps since the last year or so, perhaps even more. 2 years at this point wouldn't be so surprising of a recurrent notion, an idea, an necessary topic, and whatnot. This whole aspect of, yeah, yeah, there are things which fall under the category of what we do not want to talk about, yeah? And the issue is, it's complicated to actually say anything about what we don't want to discuss at any level. Not because things of that sort do not exist, unavoidably we're already capable of making their existence clear, or make their existence explicit, but rather it's the other order of, sadly, the moment in which you try to disclose what is in so many ways unwanted or undesired, you also yourself have a lot of issues. I feel like a common part of trying to understand what is a difficulty in terms of what we'd like to not talk about, basically, is to also realize that, in a way, everybody has something of that sort on themselves, depending to varying degrees. It's one thing is to talk about the societal taboos or whatnot, which are not so much from ourselves, but rather learned, rather something that we acquire and something that we end up, I will say, yeah, somehow interiorizing, no? One thing is that, but on the other hand, you also have things of a completely different nature, like, yeah, this person perhaps completely avoids any topic that might relate to, I don't know, drinking or politics or family or whatever. There are way too many of those things. The issue is, every single person possesses something like that. I will go as far as to say, no matter how much they have progressed with themselves, the notion of resistances, everybody will have some resistances about what they can talk out and what they are willing to talk out. I might today today I start to work on my problems and I start to get rid of my resistances. I try to not have them affect me as much anymore. And the issue is, today I started doing that. In the next week, it's an example. In the next week, I get so good at, I don't know, being capable of talking about something along the lines of cars and vehicles and everything that has any kind of relation to that, and also the capacity, my personal capacity to own a vehicle and whatnot. I can do that. In a week, I can accomplish that. But as I do that, it can also very well happen that I either, without realizing, instill a new undesirable part on me, or I also make what was already there. As in, I don't know. I did not want ever to talk about cars, but also I do not want at all to nowadays talk about video games. Both of them coexisted inside me, but I noticed more because my surroundings were pushing me to try to solve that unwanted avoidance, but not the other one. And I can. Everybody might as well suffer from a condition of that sort. We all have things that we avoid. In that sense, it's not just the societal level of yeah, I don't know, we don't talk about, I don't know, something. I guess in Latin America you always hear something like, yeah, we don't have racism or such. On one hand, we say that, on the other one, we might not even be willing to talk about how it could actually exist. It could actually be seen and whatnot. There are, at the moral societal level, there are instances of that also, but I think so that the most important level is the atomical one in terms of I personally do not want to talk about these things. I personally do not like to talk about anything of that sort, and I personally do not find any enjoyment even in trying to do so, and that's the most upsetting part. No matter what it is, we as people find ourselves incapacitated in one way or another from actively discussing, having conversations about certain aspects of ourselves, and it doesn't happen that we just avoid them, but there is also a wonderful mechanism at work. I haven't read it. This, the notion itself, is found in the different disciplines. It's not just something that pertains to psychology or whatever. You can find it in other aspects of life, like it's a general notion that we need to try to look at those shadows that haunt our loves or passions or disciplines or ideas or everything, basically. Try to have some awareness of, yeah, some awareness of that thing which we otherwise do not want to look at. The issue is not only that it does exist, but also that while it exists, there is this other layer of, wow. And while it does exist, I sort of hate to ever see it myself, to ever mention its existence. And while I might perhaps more actively try to avoid it, the moment in which it tries to be enforced on me, the discussion, that is on the personal level, it becomes sort of debilitating even to try to have those conversations, to try to have those discussions. It's one of the. I guess it's strange to some degree. It's not unexplainable, or at least it's not that I haven't found at least one plausible enough explanation for it, but rather it's that it sounds weird to say, yeah, you know what? We're not capable of talking out this thing at all, because the moment in which we try to do so, you end up completely destroyed by that. And you are to such a degree affected by all of those things that you end up completely incapable of continuing a coherent enough discussion. You cannot sustain a reasonable conversation with anyone else because in the moment of you being in that condition, in that state, you lose almost all your energy to do anything else, and all that is unwanted in that sense affects us in that way. And it's surprising not only to see that it happens, but also to see how normalized it is. It's it should be like a far more surprising notion, like yeah, you know what? I have we might all have something that completely debilitates us from continuing forward, you know? We might have something that removes all the interest, all the desire to do anything further. And you hear that, and it's somehow something that does not create any reaction in you. It's something supposedly normal. The mere mention of some things can already start to be debilitating. There is, I'm not going to any deeper level. You have something like you suffer a traumatic experience. The moment in which you get forcefully confronted by somebody and tactfully mentioning said traumatic experience, you might as well find yourself going through some sort of physical backlash from that. The whole gallery or display of, yeah. Because somebody mentions this thing, you're now finding yourself having headaches or palpitations or you you cannot breathe as easily anymore, and you unavoidably to some degree something like a panic attack is a mix between the mental and the physical, yeah, but it's something that affects us in that way, and yeah, once again, a traumatic experience is a deeper example, but even so, even the average soul, so to speak, can have something like that, can find themselves incapable of acting, unwilling to actually have discussions of some sort, completely impeded from conducting a serious, meaningful conversation about these certain things. And that is, once again, seen as normal. That's the issue here. That it's not something that agitates anyone. That you hear one day, yeah, you know what? I I cannot talk out at all about money because the moment in which we try to do that, I end up completely tired. If you try to talk about money with me, I need to shut down. I need to go and take a nap if I want to keep functioning for the rest of the day, you know? And that's seen as okay? To some degree, yeah, the issue is you say that it exists. It can unavoidably be utilized, or the more proper expression would be it can be weaponized. You can always discover what somebody is affected by. So, in a way, it's easier to, sort of easier, to realize what is the absent thing throughout all the different conversations that you have with somebody if you learn to be analytical enough to pick up in everything is present, yet this one thing throughout all of our conversations we talk about, I don't know, something like that. For example, okay, in the in terms of emotions, we can talk about depression and yeah, depression and anger and sadness and that emptiness that comes from life and the void and happiness even and all those wonderful things, and you can keep adding more. You learn to observe that at some point so many mentions of so many similar things, yet something like the whole aspect of love, the whole aspect of aren't you talking about happiness? Isn't that feeling also considered something good? How come you can't never mention something like that? How come this thing is completely missing from what you are saying? Stuff like that is possible to do, but it's way too hard. I don't think most people can easily pick up something like that. It's more of an observation that you get to do after a while, after a very long while with somebody. And the actual point is, why do we even have to concern ourselves with that? I sort of already said it very indirectly. It does exist. The more mainstream notion is from the aspect of yeah, that which is not mentioned pertains more to the side of our shadow, that which is not spoken out loud is the prohibited thing, is the thing which we say is bad to actually talk about. That thing exists in such a way that we have come to understand that it's somewhat necessary to, yeah, try to mention, try to act on those aspects of ourselves which we otherwise ignore, and that we should try to do some minimal work to at least elucidate why we are not at all doing anything for this one aspect of our reality too in the end, no? And the supposition is also that once you can finally try to move towards that direction, you might as well end up reaping some sort of benefit. You might as well end up gaining something if you can actually work on what is the thing which you are otherwise so incapable of talking about, something is to be gained. But it's, I would say, a double-edged sword. It isn't at all instilled as a necessity. It's not that we actually see it necessary to talk about those things, which I would go as far as to say, yeah, in some cases, even haunt us. It's not an obligation to do that. It can be beneficial, but you are not required at all to confront anything. The pleasing, comfortable, and loving world of nowadays, which doesn't want you having any bad experience whatsoever, makes the norm be. And yeah, you know what? We actually don't need to talk about something if you don't feel like it's necessary to talk about that. We actually don't want to hear you struggle with this thing. It's much better to do everything else that you can easily, to some degree, even if that is bad, like some of the methods, for example, for dealing with something like an addiction rely on, yeah, we don't need to push you to do anything, right? You are going to, out of your own will, solve your own issue. What we need to do is just provide you with the substance and a place in which you can problematically enough consume the substance itself and then continue with your life, basically. And that is normalized to such a degree that, in the end, unsurprisingly, it gets considered that it works because nobody complains about that in terms of, yeah, you give me what I want the most without actually pushing me towards those less desired aspects, perhaps even of myself, no? How can I actually say that what you're doing is bad if you are keeping me if you are keeping me in that safe position that I already know? If you are not challenging me, inviting me, proposing to me to try to do something, anything better than or compared to what I used to do before, right? And that's, at least for me, that's strange, yeah. That's way too much of a normal thing. And it's not, I always like to do the exercise of, does it truly have no explanation whatsoever? No, it's understandable. In a way, the general culture does possess the knowledge of, we cannot really have an open conversation about many things. I do not know how to handle. You get triggered by me trying to talk about something like war. I do not know how to handle you if you were to get triggered by something like that. And I like you enough to be willing to put up with the more amicable aspect of yourself, while knowing that I just have to avoid that one aspect of you. And that's easy enough. I have to do far more work, sometimes that I don't even know if it is going to pay out, to actually hear you talk out this thing and realize that you are having this situation, that you are unwilling to talk out this thing from this one aspect. It otherwise doesn't really happen. The average person does not need to concern itself with others to that degree. How can we expect anybody then to actively want to help, to actively want to change what for others is an unwanted topic, an unwanted conversation, an unwanted anything basically? And I think that's to some degree, unavoidably, that's the norm, yeah? To some degree, that's the most normal thing to have happen. We are not here to have any simple discussion or any quick discussion. Sadly, one of the most normal things is to see that, yeah, sadly, when we try to talk out of that, when we try to have those moments of, I wouldn't, I don't know, in the general, you might find them intimacy. The term utilizes that, yeah, the intimacy to actually disclose what I don't want to talk out and the act of trying to slowly talk out them. Besides the most obvious aspect of, yeah, you're too professional to deal with that, in the intimacy of those close relationships, those good friends, those important figures in your life, which you can trust with the responsibility of trying to one day make the unwanted possible to actually access, doesn't really require that. The issue is we make a bigger ritual out of what could be otherwise far more normal, I guess. Yeah. In the end, I feel like even it sounds like a crazy statement, but in a simpler way, in a the faster route would be simply to accept that sometimes we, as I myself, need to do a lot more work actually seeing those things which I otherwise completely reject. It's understandable enough to ask for help, but it also is unfair on others to want to charge them with what only we can identify as a completely unwanted thing. More so, it is correct what I said before in terms of if I don't know why this happens, I can very well trigger you in a one-to-one conversation or in a in anything in which there is more than one person. It can always happen that if I don't know why, I can trigger you, and I might not even have an explanation as to why that happens. When it becomes just me, I might even have the capacity to realize where this impediment is coming from, and that in and of itself is already wonderful enough. That is already helpful enough. The issue is that it takes way longer than what the normal standard of, yeah, one day I might find myself not having any more this issue out of nowhere. No, it's rather necessary to talk out what is so so unwanted. The easier route is I will do it consciously. You can always you can live your entire life unconsciously, being driven by what your part of yourself which isn't consciously active thinks about, thinks and does and everything else. But that can be much, much less than what the life of the person who actually gets to solve, gets to, at least, I guess the actual expression would be look in the eyes. The other things would be look in the eyes at that aspect of, you know what, I don't really want to talk about this. Try to at least make sure that it does exist. One of the wonderful things that can happen, for example, because the conversation sounds somewhat easy, but at the same time it does have some incredibly huge influences from the outside. Like, one day I can think that something is happening inside of me, that I have identified another unwanted thing existing. I might think so, and the issue is, I might never realize if that is truly the case or not, because what rules me more is rather this other, almost obsession of, I don't want to. In the news, I see that now war is a new prohibited topic, an incredibly sensible topic. So, I just integrate that external opinion into my own way of behaving. And I act like, oh, war is such a prohibited thing to talk about. I personally don't even know why. I don't really have a solid explanation as to why. And I can simulate like that which was given to me as an explanation also justifies or explains why personally I am suffering from the same condition, so to speak. And it's strange to see that happen. Once again, because it shouldn't need to happen. In a way, we have become so acceptant of the different distractions that affect us, the different detractions and things that just don't let us do or think out what we want, that we are absolutely capable of avoiding everything else, but to the degree to which we end up absolutely damaged, even absolutely incapable of even understanding what I personally have an issue with. There are things that are not a problem in any other way. They are not a problem for me. I have my own real set of problems, but I don't know how to see those as clearly because I started to integrate so many more other external unwanted things on my own set of unmentionable, unspeakable things, and it's surprising to see that happen to such a lack of interest, total abandonment of what is a person and what are its hopes, to the degree to which we are even capable of having ourselves affected by something that doesn't really pertain to us. It's a new layer of, yeah, my life is much more affected by what happens outside than by what goes inside. Not because it needs to, but because I can't afford to look inside to begin with. So at least one of the many theories is I can make myself feel better, I can make my own existence lighter if I tell myself that, yeah, those other worries that are from outside also affect me, also are something that I should worry about, instead of, first and foremost, trying to look at the personal stuff, the aspect that comes with the self, you know? And now, I think it's not clear enough, yeah. Why is it even necessary to do something like that? In a more clear manner, I sort of went with the easy route before of, yeah, the general discourse has this notion that perhaps when you try to do something like that, you might gain something. There is another layer of unaware when I can personally address the issue is not only is it unwanted, but also it already is turning me to something else. To have the capacity to see these entire relations happen inside of me, so that I can now far more willfully try to cut ties with that heavy weight thing which is weighing me down, that is useful, and we are not capable of saying that it needs to happen more. It's a, yeah, the correct word is always, it's a shame that we ended up in this state, completely unable to actually say anything, to actually pronounce anything of importance in this way, but it's at least possible to say that things of that nature exist to begin with. Then it goes back to the maybe I can try something, maybe I can try my luck, maybe we can see how it goes from here. That's a layer. That's something that I cannot complain about. I just need to see what exists, what is affecting me, and from there on, I can far more easily continue with my own existence, basically. And I don't know, I think it's always strange to see it so normalized. Because in the end, besides, or despite what I mentioned before, sorry, and the person is always having more of those, once you get to patch this unmentionable aspect of our own life, a new one, perhaps somewhat similar, perhaps somewhat completely different, gets to see what is weighing us down. And that is also capable of changing our course of action. But otherwise, it's kind of impossible for that to happen by itself. And we are so willing to have that happen. It's, I don't know, I feel like it is strange, really. And yeah, personally, once again, I was sort of trying to explain it very simply. The issue is the more, as I was saying before, the more you hear about it, the more surprising it becomes. Yeah, you have an unwillingness to talk out this thing to the degree to which you end up completely mentally exhausted once you're exposed for maybe 10, 20, an hour to what you were before that point in time not wanting to deal with. Before you left and you completely discarded all of that. You are now confronted by it. And when you are in that position, you end up realizing unsurprisingly that wow, my energy is completely drained. In a short time span, I am just trying to have a conversation about something. Yet somehow this very conversation is killing me. And that is, for me, worth of amusement. Same as, yeah, I have to do even something that I don't want to do. Physically, I am completely changed the moment in which I find myself in that very same position. What I used to do before that completely shows a different person. The I that acts when it is in the territory of the unwanted, and the I that gets to finally live its own life, basically, that is hard to actually, I guess, solve. I guess simply see in any other way. But yeah, I will say it's possible to do that. I don't like the general discourse of, oh no, yeah, not only it is not necessary, it is harmful to do it. I will go as far as to say it's wonderful to actually try to talk out all of that. It's one of the best gifts to try to actively disclose, realize, accept that there are things which are out there which we do not want to talk about. Not to that simple level, but also to want to work on them. Like, I am going today to name them so that I can start doing that work. I said before, it can happen that you try to do that and you end up in the other side of, well, now you solved this. But it also made you realize that there is this whole other aspect of yourself that you have to solve. There is this whole other avenue of yourself that is also unwilling to do something, completely negated to this other aspect of reality and whatnot. I will go as far as to say, and that is more useful than to remain completely unwilling entirely. Our life deserves to have those moments of willfulness, you know? And we also deserve to see that we might never reach perfection. And if it isn't with stuff like this, then it will very hardly come forward. It will very hardly appear in front of us. The realization that, yeah, I am mortal just like anyone else. I have my defects. No wonder then later on, our images of ourselves, of those who we cannot see have those issues, becomes so warped, you know? And it doesn't need to be so. But it needs first and foremost that willingness that otherwise is lacking, that otherwise is completely absent and completely non existent. And that's not only strange, but sad, I would say. But in a way, even if we are not capable of realizing that ourselves, the modern lives that we carry are already sad despite this, so just another aspect that makes them weird, or even more weird. So, yeah, that's that's what has been worrying me the most, I guess, yeah. No, I can have a good night's sleep. I I said something, so yes, thank you. I am happy. Have a good night, I guess.